Welcome back. In other news, equity funding for startups in Nigeria and other African countries dropped to $1.4 billion as of September 2023. Shortfall stood at $1.8 billion, or 56.25%, compared with $3.2 billion recorded in the corresponding period of last year, according to data from Africa, the big deal. Joining us now from Kigali, Rwanda, to discuss further is Anna Ekeledo, Executive Director of AfriLabs. Anna, it's good to have you with us. What are the primary reasons behind the sharp decline in startup funding, which amounted to only $1.4 billion in September, you think?
Thank you. Thank you, Nii, for that question. Well, I'll say, just going straight to the point, I think one of the major reasons in the drop of startup funding over the last year is an unstable monetary policy. When you look at Nigeria, for example, and other African countries as well, there isn't stability in terms of the monetary policy. So, for example, look at the dollar, the drop of the naira against the dollar over the past couple of months. It's been quite sharp. And because of that, the investments that have come into the country, into startups, have been affected in terms of returns. So you receive funding. So let's say a startup, for example, receives a funding of $1 million or $2 million, and they come in and invest, to build your business and, develop your products and everything they sell to the market. Unfortunately, because there's only a level of increments that they can increase your prices, dealing with the inflation and all that, the repatriation of funds back, the returns of investments cannot match up to the drop in the naira and what is expected in terms of returns of investment. So that has affected it. The inability to also repatriate funds out in terms of dollars has also sharply reduced investment confidence, because a lot of investors have not been able to get their money out. Then, second of all, is political instability across the African continent. Over the past couple of months, unfortunately, there's been a number of coups, a number of attempted coups, and that is in itself something that affects investor confidence, because with an unstable political environment, people are quite concerned about how the startups will be successful, and then businesses can thrive in an unstable political environment as well. So that affects it. And then lastly, trust, the storytelling that goes out of the continent. The fact is, yes, there are things happening, but there are a lot of success stories, right? But if in the news, especially international media, there's a constant reporting on what happens on the African continent as negative, then that's likely to discourage investors from, investing. So what we need to do about that is also amplify the success stories as well.
Indeed, Anna. Now, despite these success stories, the investment, and of course, the challenges you mentioned, how do you foresee the impact of this funding drop on the broader startup landscape, and what should startups do to adapt to these changing conditions?
Yes, so the effect is, well, again, less funding. They say funding is basically the lifeblood of a business, right? It could make the difference between a startup setting up a business, a startup scaling, or even dying, So, reduce funding into startups would definitely reduce the number of entrepreneurs that are able to kick off their businesses, that are able to scale and the likes. Now, in responding to it, we need to go in, right? A lot of startups that have come into the continent for the past couple of years have been foreign, funding and international investors and all that. Now, while we work to increase that, we also need to increase the amount of funding that comes from local investors, And at AfriLabs, that's something that we're currently doing through what we call Catalytic Africa. So with Catalytic Africa, we have partnered with the Africa Business Angel Network, which is a network of angel investors, angel networks across Africa. And we have built this model whereby we connect, African startups to African investors, right? While, encouraging African investors to look at African startups as an asset class, that can give you returns along with, stocks and shares of companies and real estate and the likes. And then once an investment is made from an African from a local investor into a startup, we match it, right? And that way we're de-risking the investment. So startups need to look at more solutions like that and work with innovative financing models like Catalyst Africa, speak to the local investors as well. And even, talk about the potential of investing in their business, not just for the sake of financial returns, but also impact in the industries that they're passionate about, right? And looking at the future of Africa and what it means to actually own our solutions. So that's one way. Other is to leverage on platforms such as AfriLabs that has, the network of innovation and technology hubs. A lot of these hubs provide access to investors as well. Some of the hubs have their
Right.
funds as well. We have the likes of Ventures Park, for example, Ventures Platform Fund,
All
one of
right.
the largest VC funds owned by an innovation hub in
Very
Nigeria,
good.
and the likes. So, yeah.
Anna Ekeledo, Executive Director, AfriLabs. That's as much as we can take, unfortunately. We'd like to thank you for your thoughts on those issues. Good to have you.